Here follows an extract from my book Artful Designs, available from Amazon. Chapter 4, Part 1. Sally had shown great presence of mind by ordering in a selection of specialty coffees, and she had the foresight to order a few ambiguous extras for any unexpected visitors. It was a testament to the skill and tact she employed every day as assistant to Theo. Such preemptive thinking went a long way in keeping the museum running smoothly. As such, it wasn't a problem when Benedict tagged along with Drew and Scott that morning, and he was happy to claim an Americano that was surplus to requirements. Recognising the inspector who was conducting the preliminary interviews, he strode forward to greet his colleague. "Good morning, Baskerville. What better than a trip to the art gallery to start your weekend? How lovely for you." "Hello, I didn't expect to find you here. It's not often you're in the city these days. I would have expected Chief Inspector Munro, as it's more in his line of work, but not at this early stage." "Quite right. I'm not here in any official capacity, but seem to find myself caught up in the middle of things. I thought I'd stick around and see what's going on, but don't let me get in the way. I'm just here for the coffee. This coffee really is excellent, by the way. I do love a strong blend. Thank you to whoever." Sally gave a nod of appreciation for the thanks. Baskerville turned to the gallery staff that had congregated. "Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm Inspector Baskerville, and I'll be your point of contact, or at least for the time being. This is a colleague of mine, Detective Chief Inspector Benedict James. I'm not entirely sure how he came to be with us this morning, but I can assure you all that it's a bonus for him to be around. DCI James has a knack for getting to the bottom of things. We're lucky to have him, if only for a very short time. He used to be a regular visitor to the Manchester Met, and he has quite a reputation. All good, of course." DCI James waved away the accolade. Once the formalities had been observed, Baskerville struck at the heart of the matter. During the small hours of this morning, at just before 4 o'clock, there was a forced entry here at the gallery. Mr. Hunter joined the police as soon as we could enter the building and made an initial search of the premises. Not much could be achieved whilst the fire service was making sure that the structure was safe. The police were also searching the building, and a glazier has been hard at work. The security services have kept a close watch during these proceedings. At this moment we are unclear what, if anything, was stolen, and so I need everybody to carefully check their own areas of responsibility so that we can be absolutely certain if anything is missing. At this point everybody began asking questions and voicing their concerns all at once. Baskerville raised his hand to request silence. "Of course, I'll do everything I can to answer your questions. I'm sure that there is a lot you want to know, but we must consider our priorities and then deal with matters in an orderly fashion. The most vital point just now is to ascertain if anything has been damaged or stolen. Please would you go and check your archives and report back here as soon as possible. Before you go, could I please remind everyone to wear their usual cotton gloves. In this instance, it's not the care of the artwork that concerns me. It's to prevent contaminating a crime scene. Try to make as little disturbance as you can as you look through your store. After that, I'll be happy to answer your questions." All of the staff hurried to the task, leaving DCI James and DI Baskerville to catch up on what had brought each of them to the museum that morning. "It's a pleasant surprise to find you here, sir. This is all a bit above my head. The art world isn't really for me, I'm afraid. I'm more at home with the stolen goods from the high street. I can gather the facts, but after that I can't begin to guess what to do next," said Baskerville. "Nonsense," said James. "You're just the man for the job, and this is the break, if you'll pardon the pun, that you need. Believe it or not, I'm here because I gate-crashed my sister's Women's Institute meeting and then stayed over for the sake of an excellent single malt. Nevertheless, if I can be of help, don't hesitate to ask. I'm agog to find out what went on here, but I'll spare you from having to keep repeating yourself and wait for the others to return. I can hear it with them. However, I do have an inkling, as I heard Scott bemoaning his lot to Drew over the aforementioned single malt. It seems he knew that trouble was bound to follow after a visit from his old gang, and we wouldn't have it. The moot point here is, exactly how wise is he? Said Baskerville. You say he was with you last night? Yes, he stayed at my sister's house after playing assistant for Drew in the art history presentation he gave at the WI. We stayed up late chatting and he slept in the room next to me. He was there when Drew got the telephone call from Theo early this morning. I don't see how he could have gone anywhere without our knowledge. I know we'd had a drink, but we weren't addled. That's got to be the best alibi that I've ever heard of. It's almost too good. I'm not sure that it clears him over all, though. In fact, there's a cloud hanging over everybody here until this thing is cleared up, and I've absolutely no idea of how to go about achieving that at this present moment. Any further conversation was prevented by the return of the staff who, by degrees, came to report their findings. Drew and Scott were the last to return, and their taut expressions didn't bode well. It's the cirrus cloud study that I photographed yesterday morning. It's missing, said Drew. I knew it'd be bound to be a Constable, said Theo. After you'd photographed the sketch, it was easily to hand. Everything else has been repacked away. Those no-good chums of Scott just couldn't resist, could they? To them, it's no different than nicking a packet of cigs over the counter. What I want to know, though, is just how much of this is down to chance, hey? This last remark was hurled at Scott. Did you put in some overtime last night? He was with us all last night, Theo. It couldn't have been Scott. Not that he'd consider doing such a thing, said Drew. Well, let's face it, it's irrelevant where he was. He told them all they needed to know, and that's enough, said Theo. D.I. Baskerville decided that enough was enough and intervened. Now, steady on, let's not be rash. We'll get to the bottom of this, don't you worry. What can you tell me about the missing piece, Mr. Hunter? Was it valuable? Valuable? It was priceless. It represents the artistic tension between the pioneering of Romantic Impressionism and the accuracy of scientific study. It's the epitome of Constable and marks the beginning of a new era in art history. It's a jewel in the crown of British painting. Good grief, man, of course it's valuable. Baskerville stood stock still in stunned silence as he attempted to process Theo's outburst until Drew came to his rescue. That's not quite what the inspector was asking, Theo, though you're correct in every detail, of course. Inspector Baskerville's inquiries must run on more fiscal channels, I'm afraid. Turning his attention to Inspector Baskerville, he said, The stolen picture is a watercolour sketch on paper. It's 4 inches by 7 inches and, although it's not likely to fetch millions of pounds, I guess it would be worth a significant number of thousands. It's not something you could easily sell, and it would be highly suspect if it was sold through the usual channels. If word got round, it would be far too hot to handle in established circles. Can I please interrupt? Asked Sally. I keep waiting for a convenient pause, but I don't think I'm going to get one, so I'll have to butt in. How on earth did the thief or thieves get in? We have cameras and security systems. You can't just walk in and help yourself. That is a very interesting question, said Baskerville, unable to refrain from taking just a little professional pleasure at the ingenuity of the break-in. The perpetrators made use of some of the scaffolding from the ongoing renovation. They lowered themselves down through a skylight which they broke, using a rope to gain access. A small fire had been gradually smouldering in the security office, which meant that, according to protocol, once the fire was discovered and the smoke alarms activated, the security guards had to leave the building. We have only one brief glimpse of the thief before all of the cameras were quickly deactivated for a very short time, and he, or she to be fair, had free access. Only a little time elapsed before the fire services were on the scene and security could patrol the building, but it was long enough for what needed to be done. The means of access was quickly found owing to the alertness of the security guard who commented on the rope discarded on the floor. It could have been easily explained away as being discarded by the building contractors, but the guard insists that he would have noticed it earlier on his round. He always tidies up bits and bobs as he goes along, attributing it as a throwback from his army days. Don't be blaming him for leaving the building and following procedure. He did a first-rate job last night and got us ahead of the game from the start. We could have thought it was just a fire and missed the slight glimpse on the cameras for quite some time. However, thanks to his perceptiveness, we're already on the lookout for this Finn character as our first port of call, and the Art Theft Registry are on the alert, even though we weren't sure what was or wasn't missing. They're already on standby as a matter of course. I'd say your security guard has earned himself a pint and probably needs one after the tense night he's just had. I hope you've cuffed that scum, Finn. Scott will know where he is if you haven't got him yet. In fact, you might as well grab this one here and now and save yourself a chase later, said Theo. It's all the same in the long run. Scott looked as if he didn't know whether to run and hide or to just break down and cry where he stood. Drew put his arm around the lad and gave his shoulders a squeeze as a token of solidarity. You know that I can't do that, Mr. Hunter. It's no good just throwing blame around. However, let me assure you that we are searching for and we will find Finn. We'll also be talking to everybody here. If anybody has any advice or information to offer, it will be treated with sensitivity, said Baskerville. Scott knew that this was aimed particularly at him and decided to make the showdown here and now in public, attack reputedly being the best form of defence. It may well be that Finn is at the heart of this. I wouldn't put it past him. I know that it's all my fault. Ha! What did I tell you? He even admits it himself, said Theo. That's not what I mean, though. I know what you think, Theo, and I'm really sorry for the trouble I've caused you. I'm so grateful to have been part of the gallery, and this isn't what I'd want to repay you with. It's my fault that Finn came here yesterday, but I didn't know that he was coming, and it's not what I wanted. Ever since I've been here, I've totally cut all connection with the old gang. I love it here and I've started a new life. At this point, tears welled up in Scott's eyes, but he mastered himself and continued. Finn couldn't stand it because he knew that he wasn't in charge of me anymore. My ignoring him made his blood boil. I have to keep dodging Leighton and Brad on the stairways because I know that Finn has told them to teach me a lesson. It's been hell. When I saw him at the museum yesterday, I knew that he'd got fed up of me avoiding them and had to come to get his revenge another way. If it was Finn, he'll have done all of this to get me into as much trouble as possible. He's making me suffer for selling out on the gang. What I don't understand is why he bothered to steal anything. Not that he'd be above that. What I mean is, it's just not his style. What do you mean, Scott? Asked DCI James. What specifically is Finn's style? It'd be more like Finn to break in and trash the place. The fire would be like him, but he wouldn't let it smoulder slowly. He'd rather see flames licking the walls while causing as much wanton damage as possible before he had to get out. I can't think why he'd steal any artwork. He might destroy some for kicks. He doesn't even know who Constable is, or didn't, and even now he's learned a bit about him, he wouldn't care. If he has stolen it, he wouldn't have a clue about its value and wouldn't know what to do with it once he'd got it. Knowing Finn, he'd sling it into the first litter bin he came to, or scrunch it up and throw it in the road. Theo dropped to his knees and groaned. The thought of a precious oil sketch discarded as rubbish was too much for him. Any old tramp could have it now, or it could be chewed up on Oxford Road. It doesn't bear thinking about. For the full book of Artful designs, available in paperback or as an ebook, follow the link in the cards in the description box or find details on my website at sharonbill.com. Thanks for listening.